Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Hummy, and peace out to the rest of you. The blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media, signing black in and shining again. Asking you to hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. I'm greeting you with the peace greeting, even though I'm going to rip up the black conservatives. Not necessarily conservatives that are black. I'm going to rip up the white black conservatives. I'm not even going to call them house niggas because the truth be told, slaves that worked in the house didn't have it easier. That would be an insult to the house slaves. No, I'm going to call them what they are: the sellouts, the overseers, the traitors. There's really not a better word for it. Traitor is it. These guys and girls, they have a valid point. Actually have several valid points. But then again, so do libtards. They're the ones who would call them libtards. A lot of these folks have valid points. Truth is usually somewhere in between. Usually the truth between two extreme opposing viewpoints is some balance that few people have ever noticed or walked. So anyway, I'm going to say it like this. I myself do not heroicize George Floyd, and he is not a martyr. George Floyd, to me, is not any of these things. He is a former criminal. He at least was an IDNIS. I don't know what he was like in the last few years. He got released from his last prison stint in 2014, but I honestly don't know what he was like since then. People say he was trying to turn it around. He was also found with meth and fentanyl in the system. So more than likely, he was not trying to harm anybody, but he was battling addiction. That makes him a man, neither a dangerous predator like he used to be, nor a saint. So I want to take a balanced view of him, but I'm going to tell you what he was. What he was before was an IDNIS. He was a nigga. He was your stereotypical tree-swinging, gun-toting nigga. And he did commit this crime, and I wonder how the lady feels about it when he pointed a gun at a pregnant lady's stomach. He didn't hurt her. He put her in the room, told his homie to watch her, as the story goes. He was caught later for the crime. I'm sure they caught some others too. He served time. And I'm going to tell you this. If he came out and he was changing his life around, then that's good. But no matter what, that day, he was a victim. Black white conservatives are going to say, see, there y'all go with that victim talk. They hate the word victim because victim means that somebody is guilty. And who the hell is guilty? Well, the one that they like. So they don't mind sticking up for the guilty. They don't mind sticking up for the guilty. But now, they'll stick up for the victim as long as they can use that for their narrative. But their narrative usually is stop talking, or it includes the refrain, stop talking like a victim. No, people are victims. You see, a victim is somebody who, by definition, did not provoke what they suffered. And they suffered it anyway. These niggas, these black white conservatives, they don't want to sit up and admit that nobody black deserves to go through what we've been through in not just the United States, but in the Americas, and even in the UK, and in Australia, or what the black and the First Nation people have gone through in North America in general, hell, even in the rest of the Americas for that matter. Because to them, not only does might make right, but white might makes right. Keep this in mind with these black conservatives. I'm a conservative when it comes to morals. I don't promote fornication. I also don't promote celibacy. I promote marriage and a whole lot of marital sex too. And that's why yesterday when I was on the live stream, I listened when Jay Shine said, are you just about your pleasure right now, or are you about your business and the long-term benefits? I didn't answer because he was talking to William Webster. I didn't want to interrupt. I'd done enough talking already. I talk too much at times. But what I wanted to do was to clarify in another recording that I'm about both. Not just on my behalf, I'm about both for young black thinking men who ain't got all that money yet. I'm about them also, preferably within a marriage, getting their rocks off with attractive women who also have their minds together, getting their rocks off with no barrier, straight cream pie sprayed at cervix. Get a good sleep, wake up, finish their studying or getting their grind on, repeat. I'm for them getting their stuff together for the long term, and for them right now while they're young, if they have money or not, busting major nuts inside the vaginas of attractive women that have their stuff together and are mentally adults. That's what I'm for, because these are not mutually exclusive. Some would say, well, you got to get that money before you get them women. Well, we're not that hard on them. And money is not necessarily going to come to everybody no matter how long they grind or how hard they work. Money comes with difficulty and it gets up and runs with ease. And I don't respect money enough to chase it. I don't respect fleeing women enough to chase them. Because if I have to chase her to get her and I actually got her, it means either she liked me and she lied about it by running, or it means she's using me for something because it's convenient for her at the time. That's what that means. I'm not required. I can respect neither one of them, because either way they're being dishonest. Act like you're not interested, that means you're not interested. I'm not supposed to know any different. Turn around and act like you're interested later, and only because of something you might need, you think I got it, you're dishonest. I understand that most women are naturally heterosexual and that they also have needs. And we know they do because of what they pursue, so that was my stance on that. Well, when it comes to these black, white conservatives, even though I am a conservative, they're dishonest. Not because everything they say is a lie, they're dishonest because they use a lot of truths to lead you to believe lies, and that's just as bad. Matter of fact, that could also be worse because that's a trick that the devil uses. Now, I think that the Bible makes mention of how the devil will tell the truth to lead you to a lie, but I might be wrong. Some of you know the Bible. Most of you know it better than I do. I remember most of what I read. I don't remember specifically that being in the Bible, but I do remember that being in the Hadith. The sound Hadiths, when Muhammad, peace on him, actually did say to his companions, may Allah be pleased with them, that the devil will tell a bunch of truths in order to cover up the lie. But the lie is important. And usually what these black, white conservatives do is they tell you a bunch of truths to lead you to false conclusions. Candace Owens did this when she said she didn't support George Floyd, and here's why. She admits that Derek Chauvin has to be held accountable. She admits that, but she wants to talk about the methamphetamine in his system. Okay, this means that he was either illness or he was on the border, or recovering illness. Okay, yeah, I get that. But none of these things are the reason that he died. He didn't die behind a fake counterfeit bill. It wasn't even fake. It wasn't counterfeit. It was later determined to be an actual U.S. Treasury printed note as valid currency for purchase. No, that's not what happened. He got what he got because he was a big black man, and Chauvin was politically and ideologically what it means to be white in the West. That's why. He died because they pinned him down. He did not resist arrest. They just pinned him down and sat on him. That's all it was. That was brutality. Police brutality is, in fact, aimed at black men disproportionately, even at black women disproportionately. Police brutality is something that is aimed at many people, even whites, but it is aimed at black people disproportionately. It's been aimed at Native Americans disproportionately. It's been aimed at Latinos disproportionately. It's even been aimed at poor whites disproportionately. The point is that even police brutality is not something that follows a particular standard. White folks used to love to say about black people, oh, those people were resisting arrest. Richard Pryor did jokes about that a long time ago. Pryor knew cops beat black people even when they don't resist arrest. And I saw a video myself of a white guy fight two cops and wind up stealing their cop car, driving off. They never pulled a gun on him and shot him. Never. I'm gonna tell you now, I kill a bunch of people, black, white, and everything else, men and women. I would definitely be killing a whole lot of teenagers if I was a police officer in the United States. I'd kill a teenager just for talking trash. Walk up on me and start dancing too aggressively. Pow! And would stomp your head in after I got you down on the ground. I got anger issues. But I live in a way that they don't get provoked usually. With my students, they're amusing. But they don't threaten me. They threaten other teachers. And that's why it is that I haven't had to take one of them and stomp their head into a wall. And as a matter of fact, they don't even threaten other teachers around me. I have to hear about this later on. So I learned how to deal with them. But everybody has something about which they get intensely angry and they become dangerous. I know what my thing is. I didn't go that job of becoming a police officer. I would have been willing to be a federal investigator, but just a regular cop on the beat, when I'm supposed to answer this domestic phone call, this domestic violence call, and not go upside the attacker's head when they get belligerent with me, why the hell would I do that? If I have to go answer, I'm going to take care of it my goddamn way. End of story. So I know the cops actually kill themselves more than they get killed by suspects. I realize that. But see, Candace Owens is one person who wants to say that George Floyd, she wants to say even though he didn't deserve to die, she talks a lot of points that are actually true, but then she wants to act like the black community is just pathological, and she wants to say we're the only community that celebrates its drug dealers. No, we're not. But if enough of us hear this enough times, we will become the only community that celebrates its drug dealers. Most communities do not actually celebrate their drug dealers. But there are communities that do this. Do you think that in not necessarily the Latino community in the U.S., but do you think that in specifically the Mexican and Honduran and Salvadoran communities, which have major gang problems, they don't celebrate drug dealers and gangsters? Cholos are the only ones who are not practicing celibacy in a lot of these communities. If you want to, whether in the marriage or by fornication, lay down with a young, attractive Latina, you got to be a cholo. End of. Now, I'm not talking about every other nationality, but in those communities, you got to be a gangster. Other gangsters got to be afraid of you. That's how you get them draws among them, period. So, in other words, the women that are the most attractive are pretty much saying, because I'm attractive, I qualify for the best. And what is the best to them? The cholo. That's the same problem we got. And in our community, we've been talking about this for God knows how long. I'm the one that's late to the scene. I started to really address this about a year ago. I addressed it before that, but I started to really address this to larger audiences about a year and some months ago. Many of you have been on this scene even much longer than I have. So you know how bad this is. Keep in mind, understand, in Japan, the Yakuza, that's the gang. And law enforcement is afraid of them. And when a Yakuza member gets out of prison, their return back to the Yakuza is celebrated. Same thing with the triads. It's like this. Every ship has its rats, but when you're black, your ship gets defined by its rats by everybody else. That's the difference. When you're black, the spotlight is on the rats in your ship so that even you have a hard time seeing the rest of the ship. You know it's there, but you have a hard time seeing it because the spotlight is being shined from outside on only the rats. That's what really goes on. In other communities, they're looked down on or looked up on to varying degrees. But for them, it's not only the rats that get the spotlight. And that's where the difference comes in. So these black-white conservatives got some nerve. Because what they're doing is they're taking true statements, and they'll actually quote to you stats, but they're still trying to lead you to a false conclusion. And that false conclusion is that we're just pathological. Everybody else is better than us. And I've warned us against this multiple times. Now, the fact that Candace Owens made her video and that we have not made the rebuttals to it so popular that I can find them easily is a problem. I know somebody's made a rebuttal. I'm not the first one. But these videos should be the ones with the likes and the clicks and the share buttons. Even if it's not mine, you could share with me somebody else's and I will be happy with it. But you should still hit the share button on this one because you should on any of my videos. They're more important than the likes. 5 likes, several hundred views. That means the message is getting out there. Because, see, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you facts to try to lead you to false conclusions. That's the same thing as lying. And I'm not going to get away with something like that. No. I'm telling you, black folks, I'm getting you to understand right now what you need to understand right now. And that is that when they talk, they're going to lead you down a path wherein you will stand on several platforms that are solid. It is that one platform that shakes as soon as you put enough of your weight on it. You put both feet on that platform and it crumbles because it's false. And you're going to look like a damn fool. And your feet going to get cut. That's how it works. That's the way they do it, because sometimes they know and they don't care. And other times they don't even know. George Floyd is not a hero, he's not a martyr, but he was a victim. And the conservative element among us, following the white conservatives that are a different breed and a different bunch, love to sit up and say, don't talk like a victim. God damn it, black people are victims. And we're not the only victims. If poor whites have been victims before, what the hell do you think other melanated people have been? And if they've been victims, what do you think we're gonna be? Victim, 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 victims. Victims to the third power. That's not our fault. I don't say use that as an excuse to be a low-down, dirty, stereotypical, idness nigger. But what I do say is understand that we are victims. Look, like Edward Anderson said, we're a created class. We are a created community. We were communities back home. They got along better than what we think they did. They weren't all fighting each other back in Africa, like what we've been led to believe. But they were distinct peoples. Even intermarrying, they were still distinct. Yoruba and Igbo are 2 different languages. But then again, they didn't intermarry much that I know of. Gio, Mana, Kru, Pele, Vasa, Mandinka. These have all remained distinct languages just in West Africa alone, because even when these folks married, the languages were distinct. So we were not always killing each other and at each other's throats. That's a dumb thing to believe. Why would the Wolof and the Mandinka hate each other? They've been married. They have been intermarrying for a long time. The languages are still distinct. So we're better than what we think we are. Our ancestors are better than what we think they were, and we're better than what we think we are. However, we are victims. That's not something for which we should blame ourselves. So don't let these white conservatives or these black white conservatives, these traitors, come along and tell you, stop talking like a victim. God damn it, we were. Talk like a victim that's going to work to improve the situation, but you are a victim. And see, they'll turn around and start talking in favor of victims when these victims have black oppressors. Then they will. George Floyd's last victim, the pregnant woman to whose stomach he held a gun. He wound up not harming her. That George Floyd had a black victim. Candace Owens didn't mind talking on behalf of that black victim, and she should not have. I sympathize with that victim. The problem I got is that she comes from that same camp, and she's never once turned on them publicly to where everybody could hear and say, hold up, the rest of you, even if we're on the same side, the rest of you need to stop telling black people to stop being victims. They are victims. She wants to act like there's no racially based anything going on in the States. Oh, hell yeah, there is. There absolutely is. The police know at this point that they got a spotlight on them. If they know that if they're going to shoot black looters and rioters, they're going to have to shoot white looters and rioters, and those are the majority. They don't want to do that. These cops are looking at their own cousins and kids that are Antifa and anarchists and out here doing the looting and the rioting. They're the ones even handing out the bricks sometimes. It's part of an operation. That's what they want to see happen. Then they cut a deal in Chicago with some Latino gangs, the Latin Kings at the very least, that cut a deal with them and said, you can protect your areas. That's what they said. So they actually wanted for black looters and rioters to be shot by Latin Americans. That's really what they wanted. Now, I don't know if that's going to work. They charged the other 3 officers already. So I imagine that things are going to quiet down a little bit. I heard that over the last 24 hours things have. I don't know. I've just heard it. I'm going to wait for confirmation. But what I do know is that these black, white conservatives, these are the enemy. And they're not the enemy because they tell us we need to change the culture. We do. Oh yeah, we have some work to do, but this is an internal affair. Can Africans help? I think they can. So long as they're willing to accept criticism when they do something in their culture that's not functional. Because their cultures aren't perfect, and they'll tell you that. The ones of them who can say, look, my own people need to fix this, that, and the other, so I can give you advice just like I can give my own people advice. If they can do that, those are the ones we can afford to listen to. Because they can take advice to their own people. So they can give it to us. I don't mind that. You're trading the benefit of your experience with a particular cultural practice that doesn't help, fine. We got that. By the same token, we don't need to be letting in anyone that does not identify as black and having a common ancestry as us. Come along and tell us anything, especially when they can't let anyone tell them anything. We do not need that. We never did. So we don't need these black, white conservatives coming in because who do they represent? White conservatives. So are they going to tell us to change our culture for our own good? Or are they going to tell us to change the culture for the appeasement of white folks? Yeah, we do need to change it, but we actually need a more militant culture against everything that white Western European society holds near and dear. What's good for us? Fine. What's good for both of us? Fine. What's good for just us? Even better. What's good for us and bad for them is the best. Because they're the oppressors. They're the real inferiors of humanity. And it's not because of their DNA sequence, but because of what they've done throughout history, including the brainwashing. Don't celebrate the fact that they can get enough of us to become black, white conservatives on their behalf. Ain't nothing to celebrate. The fact that they can do it probably means that they're working with some demons. And I do believe that there are devils then there are human devils and that there are devils we cannot see. I'm sure that there are. And I think that the top elite are working with them. I bet money on it. Because they got to be working with somebody that has lived an insanely long time and has had that insanely long time to study human psychology and use it and weaponize it against human beings, especially the most humane of humanity, and for the favor and the benefit of the least humane of humanity. See, these black, white conservatives will say certain things like, well, obviously white America doesn't want to annihilate you. And I would say that's true. It only cost $4 billion and about a day to almost completely wipe us out. That's the truth of the matter. What white folks actually want from us is hard to guess, but they definitely want subjugation. Now, we're the easiest one to subjugate for the most part because of not only the difference between our DNA, but the differences in our appearance. If it wasn't us, it would be somebody else. The closest thing to us. Right now, it's us. So they can categorize and elevate or de-elevate other groups that move into their Western European spaces within Western Europe and within its diaspora, like the United States and Canada and Australia and Israel, for that matter. They can elevate or categorize people how they want for that end. But believe you me, if there were no black folks, they would get the next darkest people to do this to, because that's where the ease comes in. And there is a saying in Arabic, when the fire finds no more fuel, it burns itself. And they're that fire. When they don't find something outside of themselves to consume like this and to oppress, they would do it to themselves, but they've never gotten to that point yet. They've already actually tried to do this temporarily to themselves. What you think World War I and World War II were about? They fought major wars in Europe over who was going to oppress which darkies throughout the world. Then they got smart and said, let's have a conference in 1884 and talk about this. Because we got gunpowder. We can pretty much take whoever we want and colonize whoever we want. So let's just meet and have a conference. And Italy, unsatisfied with the share it got, they got it. They got something. And France and England got the lion's shares. And Portugal got a disproportionate landmass, much like France and England. Both of them, just in Africa alone, having colonies, the land areas of which exceeded their own land areas by so many times. So we ain't the only victims in the world. We're the darkest victims. We're the ones that have to matter to ourselves. Okay, fine. We got to care about ourselves. Everyone does. But they love to tell you, don't talk like a victim. You are a victim. You're one of many. And George Floyd was a victim. He wasn't a martyr, he was not a hero, but he was a victim. None of the things he did in his past are the reason that he died that day. He didn't die because of who he was or who he had been. He died because of who Derek Chauvin is and who the other officers are. And in that order. So yes, black people have every right to be ticked off. I don't think we should riot and loot because it won't help us that much. But we should refuse to condemn anybody else that riots and loots. I mean, we should be on TV like, okay, they rioting and looting, but I'm not condemning them. You deserve it. That's what black people should be doing, and most of us are doing exactly that. Ain't a whole lot of us doing the rioting and looting, comparatively speaking. At least not from the video evidence. And let's be honest, if it takes video evidence and rioting and looting with protests to get the McMichaels arrested and Roddy Bryan arrested in Georgia, and to get these 4 officers charged and arrested in Minnesota, and it's not working for Breonna Taylor's killers, and it didn't even work to get Blaine and Salmoni arrested and sent to Angola and given the death penalty, and yet was not necessary to get Norris and Greenhouse in Louisiana sent to Angola, 2 black officers, and the suspect that caused the death of his own son with them is now free, then yes, we black folks have been treated unjustly and unfairly. This is the culmination of many things going on. We have every right to be pissed. We don't owe white America anything but terrorism and an ass whooping. Like one of the ladies said, America's lucky that we're looking for equality and not revenge. I want you to be able to take revenge one day, but I don't think it'll be able to happen. I think you got a better shot at getting revenge from outside the country than you do from getting it in the country. Because believe you me, other nations and governments are sick and tired of U.S. policies. Think about it. Iran is no ally to the United States. Did you know that when Iran flies anywhere internationally, when any Iranian airline or plane flies anywhere internationally, they have to obey certain American protocols like other nations do, but this is not even an ally to them? No embassies between the two? And I'm not a friend of Iran or an enemy. But What I'm saying to them, what I'm saying is that other nations have also been oppressed at the governmental level by the states. Believe you me, if we bounce to other nations, we would be the consultants on how to collectively and cooperatively refuse to cooperate with America's hegemony across the globe. We are the balance of power. I thought about this last night, my time after my live stream. I had time to think about it. We could do that. And I don't mean necessarily the June bugs, but the thinking black men. And these black white conservatives are going to try to tell you that being a thinking black man would stop you from having police encounters. That's not necessarily the case. I'm sure it didn't help if George Floyd was high as a kite. I'm sure it didn't make a difference. I'm sure it didn't help him. But had he been sober, I can't guarantee, and that's the thing, we can never guarantee this. Alton Sterling had not had an argument with anybody. He had done nothing wrong to anybody, and he got killed. He was a piece of crap in his previous life. He wasn't supposed to have a gun on him at that time legally. But we have to also take a moral stance about this and tell white America collectively, morally speaking, what business is it of yours if one of our ex-felons carries a gun? That's our business, not yours. You have no jury. We need to tell white America and the whole white Western world, really, the whole white Western European world and its diaspora, morally speaking, you have no rights that we are bound to respect. And if we achieve world power, we will not respect them. Because they have avoided what's coming. And even most of their own people are with us in that. They know they've been profiting and benefiting from what their ancestors did to our ancestors. They know this. A lot of them are sick of it. I don't know how many are secretly members of the alt-right, or rather alt-white movement, as my father called it. That's not something we would have to study. What we do know is that law enforcement has been infiltrated by white supremacist, white nationalist groups. Not only anti-government militia, but mostly white supremacist and white nationalist groups. And keep in mind that this uptick in police brutality, notice I say uptick, not the beginning, but this uptick in it about between 5 to 6 years ago also coincided with the rise of international white nationalism. Oh yeah, keep that in mind. White nationalists in the US will wear European hairstyles in solidarity with the white Europeans, who used to be known for their tolerance of black populations within their borders. But these black populations grew to 14% of the total, and that's usually about the cutoff that white folks can accept. And I know that this is a problem for them because these ones that might be liberal, they're the same ones who, when they come over here into the Gulf, and now they're outnumbered by darker people who have different rules, they have a hard time adjusting. I've noticed that. And the ones who've had the hardest time adjusting are the Dutch descendant white South Africans. You don't have many British descendant white South Africans teaching English in the Gulf countries. That's very rare. It almost never happens, actually. I've never met one British descendant white South African. But the Boers, oh yeah, they're here. And they cause trouble. They don't abide by the rules that these folks set out. And they're the ones that usually wind up getting fired and sent back home. Or they resign because they can't take it. Because they cannot stand for people darker than them to tell them that they got to do something they don't want to do, it if they can't do something they want to do. It's too much for them. And I know how they feel because I can't let a Boer tell me, especially with that Cape Town accent, a Boer can't tell me to do something I don't want to do or to not do something I want to do. I don't let them do it. Not with that accent. No, buddy, that sounds like lynchings in America, and it sounds like sicking dogs on us in South Africa. That's what your accent reminds me of. Get the hell out of my face with that BS. So when a brown or black Arab tells him that you can't walk around here with shorts on like that out in public. Now, I'm not even talking about to the women. They say this to the men. You can't walk around here with shorts that short out here in public. Your whole thigh is showing. They got women and kids out here. Well, I don't see what the problem is. Problem is that you're here in Qatar. You're here in the UAE. You're here in Bahrain. You're here in Saudi. You're here in Oman. That's the problem. Go put some pants on. Or some longer shorts. Oh, they take issue with that. They really do. But that's good. I like that. What I want you to keep in mind, though, is that they have this unity that's international. For all the fighting they've done with each other throughout history, and for all of the white-on-white violence that they perpetrate, when it comes to anybody else being in the room, they unite. And that's why it is that these black-white conservatives are plumb fools for saying things that would appease them. Because when there are no longer any of us bad niggas in the room for these black-white conservatives to talk down on anymore, then who are these white conservatives going to talk down on? Well, you see that everybody in this room is lighter than you. Why don't you use this skin bleach? Are you serious? I mean, come on, we're all white. You're still black. What's wrong with you? That's how it's going to be. And I know this because I know how these white folks think. I've listened to them at times they didn't know anybody black was talking, and they're snide like that. They don't think anything. They know that this is a dumb thing to say. The example that I use, they know it's a stupid example. But when there ain't no more black folks around, except for these black-white conservatives, that's going to come next. Why don't you put this skin bleach on? You're too dark. It'll come down to nothing other than that. And as if they don't just start putting guns to heads and pulling triggers. Because what they fail to realize is that white supremacy does not tolerate the presence of non-whites unless they serve a purpose. Their lives are not sanctified. Life is not sanctimonious if it's not a white life. And they're going to talk to you about these black-on-black statistics too and say, well, how come you're not marching and protesting every time a black person kills someone else? Failing to answer their own question with the obvious. Number one, we don't know about every black-on-black killing. Number two, the police do know about it, and they're looking for the killer. Number three, if they find the killer, they're going to put him in prison. They may even put somebody else in prison for it. That's why. And if we were marching every time that happened, then they would say, well, how come you don't march when black people kill white people? Well, I mean, that should be obvious at this point, but let's see here, because I don't know, the police are definitely going to kill somebody for that or throw them in prison, and the judge is going to give them the lethal injection for that, even if it's the wrong one, because that just cannot go unpunished. Even if the black person is a cop and the white person scared the police officer. That's why. It's because it's imbalanced. And see, black-white conservatives, they don't want to admit that black annoyance is largely justified. Now, I'll preach against it. I'll try to help us and correct us with it, as I've done in the last few videos. But I'm trying to do it for the right reasons. I don't want you making enemies that aren't your enemies. I don't want you to make this thing more difficult for yourself. I don't want you to exhaust your ammunition in the wrong direction and then have the real enemy come up when you're short and blow your brains out. That's why. But they'll tell you that you're just black. You're just blackanoid. You think nobody likes you because you have self-esteem issues. Well, I mean, come on, goddamn. The thing is, African-American women have tried that with me all my life. And they've also tried the opposite. Any sign of self-respect? Well, you ain't all that. Any sign of humility? Well, you got self-esteem issues. You need more confidence. It doesn't matter. And now here come along these white conservatives and the black white conservatives, and they're saying the same thing. They're sitting up here and they're saying the exact same thing. And under the exact same conditions, trying to get you to realize, or trying to get you to think that anything you do is going to be wrong. Now look, I'm just going to call it what it is. Black-white conservatives are not only taking on the mindset of another group of people, they're taking on the mindset of the worst group of people to ever walk this planet. And then they're preaching it to us. And they're very dangerous because they're telling truths to lead you to false conclusions, as I said earlier. So when you hear a black conservative talking about what we should do for ourselves and only for ourselves, and they can admit that white folks as a society are pieces of crap. I say as a society. You take individuals as individuals, fine. But until they can admit that white society is crap, then you don't listen to them. A black so-called libtard, as they would call it, is about as bad. But the day that they can admit, Walaikum salam, Shalom. I wish I knew, man. But the day that they can admit that these folks are jacked up. You can listen to them talk about other conservative points as long as this is an internal conversation and it's not a conversation that we're having in front of other people, where they can turn around and divide us. And when I say in front of other people, I mean in front of anyone that ain't us, and proud to be it. Don't even have these kind of conversations in front of a black-white conservative. A black conservative, sure, but a black-white conservative that you know is such, don't discuss in front of them. And feel free to say, look, we can discuss this, just not in front of this one over here. Why can't y'all discuss it in front of me? Well, because you'll say the right things for the wrong reasons, that's why. You love to spit facts to try to lead us to a conclusion that we ain't gonna stand on. That's why we ain't gonna discuss it in front of you. Because if we talk about the weaknesses of the white community and how to exploit them for our benefit, hell, even just for our freedom, you would take issue with that. But then you would say, what do you expect when they do it to us? That's why. There's always some imbalance. You gotta catch it. Last thing I'm gonna say is, last thing I'm gonna tell us is that I ain't gonna front. Sometimes these black white conservatives get the crap into the stick too. Sometimes they do. Candace Owens has been mistreated before. She's had things that she said taken out of context. I kid you not. The tricks that the media uses on us, they've used against her as well. She's been a victim. But watch how she acts when she's a victim versus how we act when we're victims. And you'll see her hypocrisy still. Candace Owens and all the other ones like you, simply put, you're just not politically black enough. Because if you were, you would realize that George Floyd, even though you admitted he didn't deserve to die, he did not die because of anything bad he had done before. He died because Derek Chauvin knows what it means to be politically and ideologically white. And the other officers know what that means as well, and they knew their place in the hierarchy. If you stop and you think about it, George Floyd on the ground can't breathe. White and non-white officers stepping on him, and Derek Chauvin actually killing him. You will come to understand that that was exactly symbolic of what white supremacy is in America. White on top, black at the bottom. Everyone else somewhere in between, and they better help white against black, or they gonna catch it. So you black-white conservatives have no place amongst us. I hope this has been a benefit. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And black, heterosexual, male power, specifically because they don't like it.